to this episode of Art Safely in Conversation. My name is Diane Collin. I am a woman with short hair, blue eyes, and glasses, and today I wear a light blue top. Behind me are shelves with many books. This series presents artists, academics, and project leaders who dedicate their time and energy to a better accessibility for people with disabilities in the arts. You can find more of these conversations on our website, artsably.com, which is spelled artsably.com. Today, Art Safely is in conversation with Reverend Chris Wiley, aka DJ Pastor Rock, a musician, songwriter, vocalist, and pastor living in Buffalo, New York. You can find the resources mentioned by Chris Wiley during this episode on Art Safely's website in the blog section.
Here comes a tear, brought on like a storm. Dropping these rhymes like you ain't heard before. You think you're in power, yeah, you think you're legit. I'm here to tell you, words aren't worth. Bringing fire, your time is done. Sound the alarm and get ready to run. Flipping over tables, I'm on the hunt. Your reign is over, there's a new day begun. I'm bringing fire. I'm bringing fire. Said, building your empire, stepping on the dead, but you're just another giant, and I'm David slinging stones, gonna hit the ground. That's how this story goes. Bringing fire, your time is done. Sound the alarm and get ready to run. Flipping over tables, I'm on the hunt. Your reign is over, there's a new day begun. I'm bringing fire. I'm bringing fire. An imperfect body, but I'm still down. If you keep others out, I ain't messing around. Hanging on the margins, I'm here and I'm proud. Build me a ramp or I'll burn you to the ground. I'm bringing fire. I'm bringing fire. Bringing fire all over the earth. You come any closer, you're gonna get burned. Cranking up the heat a couple hundred degrees. Holy flamethrower, clear your eyes and you'll see. Bringing fire, your time is done. Sound the alarm and get ready to run. Flipping over tables, I'm on the hunt. Your reign is over, there's a new day begun. I'm bringing fire.
Welcome to this new episode of Art Safely in Conversation. Today I am with Reverend Chris Wiley, aka DJ Pastor Rock, who is a musician, a songwriter, a vocalist, and a pastor living in Buffalo, New York. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, Diane. It's great to be here with you today.
Thank you for being here. Okay, so I always start episodes by asking about background. So what about yours? What brought you to music? What brought you to everything you're doing as an activist in life? And also if you could provide a quick visual description. Thank you.
Sure. As you said, my name is Reverend Chris Wiley, DJ Pastor Rock, and I'm a disabled, queer, wheelchair-using person with glasses and a blue beard. I'm wearing a flannel, and there's a bunch of instruments behind me. The thing that really brought me to music, I think community, being a young disabled kid growing up in like the 70s and really 80s by the time I was like entering my teens and things. There was some exclusion, and there was some things like where society really didn't didn't uh, try really so hard to include disabled people the way that sometimes they do now. So it was kind of like feeling a little bit on the outside, and but music was the one thing that people couldn't kind of take away from me. So I started, I had met some friends and who were also a little bit outsiders, and we just started making music together. I started a little bit on the bass, guitar, and then quickly after that started playing drums, which is my main instrument, or was my main instrument for a long time. Uh, um, and I've played that for maybe 40 years, a little over 40, like a long time. Um, so I've played, and now I am playing bass again too. So I've kind of come back to where I started. But, so I started doing that, and then just going through and playing in bands like in high school and college and things. And then, along the way, kind of got involved in like I went to school for broadcasting to do like radio and things like that. But I kind of some twists and turns and done a few other things. I've done corporate things, like you just interviewed the Shaman, and they talked about their work in the corporate world. I did that. I was in banking for a long time, and then advertising, and a pastor, as we've already touched on. So like I've done a lot of those things, and then kind of found like my body as I've gotten older has become a little bit more disabled, and some of the things, just simple things like getting in and out of people's houses, like became more of a challenge and stuff. And I found my way back into music, and so that's kind of what brings me here. Like I started writing and recording my own music and things, which is something that I wanted to do from back in the day, but it was a process. We didn't have the technology that we have now and all kinds of things. So there's like a lot of layers to that story.
So what's your musical style?
My musical style, I make justice-oriented hip hop and rock with accessible pop hooks. That's my catchphrase. Is like there's so many influences, again, kind of growing up like in the early days of rap and things like that with Public Enemy and some of those things. That's like a big influence because they were talking about their experience, and a lot of it is like centered on liberation, which is a big thing for me. And so like that, is definitely an influence there, but also rock. But then one thing that I think is always kind of funny, where I mentioned like the accessible pop hooks, like that if people don't want to listen to your music, what's the point? Right. So I always kind of add layers in, and I was really influenced a lot by people like Stevie Wonder came up on your recent podcast, and like Songs in the Key of Life, like is a great album, and Madonna and Janet Jackson and some of those people just making, again, the music accessible, making it kind of like so people want to listen, catchy. But but like style wise, I kind of go all over, a little bit of rap, a little bit of rock. I'm working on like a blues kind of Americana album right now. I also play a little harmonica and things. So yeah.
Catchy, but I think one of the things that you have in your music too is that since you're an activist, in many ways, you are a disability rights activist, you are an access activist, you're a parenting disability activist. So all this activism comes into your artistic practice too, right?
Hmm. For sure, that's true. Like, and I've done a lot of things like with the Kairos Center in New York City. I'm part of their artist collective and Poor People's campaigns. So a lot of justice for me, a lot of things go back to, well, not even a lot of things, almost everything to me goes back to justice and inclusion. I can only really tell my story as, again, a disabled queer artist, but I also recognize that like other people have been historically marginalized and that their stories have value and need to be here too. And I'm not here to tell their story, but I'm here to help create space for them to be able to also tell their story. So I think a lot of that is reflected in my music. But again, like when you hear my music, there's always that theme of justice and inclusion. But mostly I hope you hear like my story. Like you're hearing me tell it from my perspective of what I go through, what my daily life is like, the obstacles that I have to overcome. And while it's easy to get stuck there on that side of like the justice side and say, look how bad it is, I always try to have an arc. This is where like my pastor side comes out. Like I always think that love, in the end, love is what I think rises above all of that. So I think I always try to go from that side of things, the kind of side of exclusion toward inclusion, but also to community. And I've had so many people in my life really be able to have conversations with me and be willing to work with me and so on. So, I mean, that's all part of it too, is yeah, we need to kind of fight and work for access and inclusion and justice and liberation, but don't forget the love.
For sure. Speaking of community, we are both part of one community, which is special to both of us, called RAMPT, recording artists and music professionals with disabilities. Can you talk a bit about how you got into RAMPT and what's your role in RAMPT today?
Yes, I'm on the partnerships committee. I was the recent past co-chair, but I'm also the treasurer of RAMPT, and which is where I get to use a little bit of like my banking background and things. I was in commercial finance and things like that for a long time. So that's helpful. So yeah, I'm, as you said, a professional member of RAMPT. I'm the treasurer. I'm on the partnerships committee, and that has opened up doors to a whole bunch of other things. And it's a great space. Now, how I got involved, I had gotten to know Galen Lee a little bit, who is one of the co-founders along with Lachi. And now I see Lachi all the time, but I didn't know Lachi back then. But I knew Galen, and I knew Galen was working on something, and I wanted to know what it was. I'm like, Galen, what are you working on? And Galen, what are you working on? Because I mentioned just earlier in the interview at the beginning, like exclusion and all that I faced when I was a young person coming up, and that's one of the things that I love so much about RAMPT is that it's helping to amplify and lift up disability culture and create opportunities for disabled artists and others to be involved in the music industry and help kind of clear some of those hurdles, help kind of build those ramps that maybe I didn't have, and I think that's what's really important to me. Like I can't go back, but I can help try to make somebody else's path a little bit smoother going forward. So, it's a win-win. I get to do the things I'm doing, but I get to help other people along the way. But yeah, a lot of that started with my relationship with Galen Lee, who is amazing and wonderful, a great person and a really great, talented musician as well.
Yes, she is. And a lot of musicians I know from this community are really amazing in sharing their stories and also trying to connect and help each other, which I really, we don't see that every day in life. So it's really appreciative.
I think we know what it's like to kind of be on the outside a lot of times, to have to do the extra work that sometimes we have to do. We always have a little bit more to do, even on our good days, right? Even when people are trying, because we have to think about accessibility, and we have to think about how we're going to be able to make things work in a way that non-disabled people don't really have to think about. I often say we live in a world not built to include us. So it's getting better. People are trying. We're moving forward. But we all know that. Like, you and I are both wheelchair users. So we know what that's like to be rolling around and to have difficulty getting in a building, or, oh, here's a flight of stairs or something. We know all of those things, and we know like where things have maybe been difficult for us. So I feel like we also kind of work together to say, hey, let's, it becomes more than just about yourself, but again, about that community, about each other. So we're all doing our own things and trying to keep those things going, but also we're in it for each other, because when one of us succeeds, we all succeed, and I think that's a really beautiful thing. And also, just as a side note, thinking about all the people I've met from RAMPed, including you, who knew there were so many of us? It's kind of amazing, like, to see all of these beautiful, wonderful, talented people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and also I think by seeing, as you say, by seeing the successes that happen all around us, we meet frequently and we cheer for each other, and I think it pulls up to higher levels, right? We really want to okay, so that gives me an idea. Or when they connect us and say, oh, by the way, this person is willing to work with you and do that. And that I find it's an amazing community of musicians.
It is amazing. I was just out in Vancouver for the Vancouver Film Festival. I was part of the AMP program, which is a program to also like help create opportunities and build connections for marginalized musicians and filmmakers and composers and such. And and that happened through Ramped. So again, those opportunities to just do really, really great things, like that was my opportunity to be out. But also, while I was there, I was like ramped, every other word, I think, and like talking about it and sharing all those things. And so that was amazing too.
So you just came back from Vancouver and you told
Yeah.
me that you are working on a new album right now. Can you give us more details?
I am, yeah. I just came back from Vancouver, again, the film festival, and doing my things out there, which was incredible. Great opportunity, and met so many amazing people who are doing amazing things. We have uh, Tony Scudolari, who is the person who is one of the people who started the AMP program, is also one of the people who are on the board of advisors for Ramped. So like that is a great connection. And then I was in New York City just before that. But before and during and amidst all that, and that's kind of the fun of music, right? Like also working on an album that's kind of a blues-based album, which is a little bit different for me, but maybe a pocket that I'll settle in for a little while. I think there's some opportunities there, and plus it's kind of fun. I get to do the things like play harmonica a little bit and other things. So I'm working on this album and trying to have a little bit more of a live feel to the work, maybe not quite so polished as some of the other things. And again, I know your past guest, who I've already mentioned, DeShaman, touched on that, like just kind of leave a little bit of the flavor in there. And so working on that, I just released, like, just because I was in a rush, I wanted to get it out for the film festival. There was a song called Underweight that I just released. And again, that was like just telling my story as a disabled person trying to navigate navigate the world and things, and that's part of that project. So I'm working on that. It's a little early yet. I just finished kind of a punk album with my band Mosh Cats. Um, so I always got something cooking.
Yeah,
I'm out here, doing my thing.
very good. That's a bubbling project. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question about what accessibility in the arts, which is really what we try to promote and try to show that it's a possibility in our life to do some music. And for me, it's kind of a mix between disability arts or crip culture, sometimes things like that, which is I like the notion of trying to punch in the face some notions that people have, and
Mhm.
accessibility arts is one. And so, what does it mean for you to really work in that environment where we promote accessibility in the arts?
You're really speaking my language here now, like for sure, kind of like, you know what I mean? Liberation, again, is how I always phrase it. And you're doing something that's countercultural. Inclusion in love itself, though, is countercultural. It's punk. That's how the punk album came to be. Like people might think, punk is something that it isn't, but mostly punk is about taking systems, usually of inequity, and flipping those tables around. And I think that's what accessibility in uh, in the arts really means to me is that hopefully people want to work with us. A lot of people do want to work with us, but in those times that they don't maybe want to work with us quite so readily, we're going to push the door open a little bit on them and we're going to come in anyway. And, but again, there's just, I think I'd rather kind of focus still on the community and the love. Like, I think that's where accessibility in the arts really makes a difference. You have people outside but there's all these voices, right? And promoting accessibility in the arts, I think it's really important for us to each have our story, a space where we can each tell our story and share our experience. When I think about accessibility in the arts and what that means to me, I really think about our collective humanity and how when when one of our stories aren't being heard, when we don't have the space to share our story, our collective story, our universal story is incomplete. So when I think about accessibility in the arts, that's what it means to me. Is just flipping around the tables that say, you know, only the people in the center of the narrative will have their story told. Only the people at the top get all the resources. But to flip that around and say it's our collective journey, it's our collective experience, because I think when any of our experiences, any of our stories are left incomplete or out, then our collective story again is sort of incomplete. And that's what I think about when I think about accessibility in the arts, is just a better telling of our story. Like if I were writing a play, it would be like if I only have like scene one in the movie might be the story that most people hear, but you need the other two acts in the story to make it complete. And that's bringing in all these other voices, bringing all of our other experiences in. And so again, that's, to me, that's what I think about when I think about accessibility in the arts, is just a more complete telling of our story.
I like also the aspect of teaching younger kids, because these younger kids not only will learn themselves how to give their voice and how to express themselves about anything. It could be about their own identity, it could be about a disability, it could be about a relationship to others. But when you start small and you're guided in that, then your voice as a child is as important as a voice as an adult. And so really to push them and to accompany them And um, then this, if you do it in a way that really triggers some reflection to the children, then this will go home with them, and they will be the ones guiding the adults on important conversations.
Absolutely. And they become adults later. And so you're opening up those channels for communication for them to be able to have the tools. That's what I love about your work, for to open up the channels and give the tools, provide the tools for them to be able to create and to experience and to be able to express themselves. Because I can say things in music that I can't really say, or that I might have difficulty saying without music. You
Mhm.
know, if I put something in a song, uh, it's like it's it's fuller, you know, and it's also people hear it in a different way because you put a beat behind it and you give it a hook and everything, and you know, you're starting from the beginning with the kids, you know, and giving them those tools and saying, hey, here, this is your world too, and I want to hear your story. And there's something really powerful in that
Mhm.
because it's easy to overlook people. It's particularly easy to overlook children and say, you know, they're just kids, and you know, but when they recognize that you care and that you want to hear them too, like that's such a powerful motivator. Like you said, they go home and they tell their parents and they tell others, but then they grow up and it inspires them. I mean, I had people helped me when I was a younger child, and really listened to me when I was a younger child. And and that really changed the way that I look at the world. It made me say, well, I had all these people help me and share with me and help me find my voice. I want to go and do that for others.
Mhm. Yeah, and it also comes with the idea of love that you were talking about at the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. But that is really what I love about your work. You know, again, you're starting right at the basics and really like saying, this world can seem so daunting. Music can seem so daunting, but really it isn't. Really, there's all these opportunities just to sit down and start. And you don't know where it's going to take you, but it could take you someplace magical. It can take you amazing, amazing places. Could take you where we're sitting here having a conversation, and a few years ago we didn't know each other, but now we do, and you know, and we're both doing great things, and all that's because of music.
Yeah. And plus they have fun.
Yeah,
It's great. Yeah. Yeah,
it
and you're
should be
right.
fun, right? It's joyful. If music is not fun, you're doing something wrong, you
Sure.
know?
Okay, so I have a last question for you, and it's about these people who might have, inspired you, impacted you during your musical career. If you have one or two people to think of, who would it be and why?
That's a hard question to answer because there's so many people. I mean, I can tell you about my influences early on, and you know, uh, I got involved like in recording studio work back in the early 1990s. That was like where I went from just playing drums to trying to write and record my own stuff and try to figure that journey out and get involved in that. So my friend uh, and Buffalo Music Hall of Famer Gino McManus was a huge influence there. But you know, but also just like well-known musicians like Johnny Cash, like Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, like George Martin, you know, who did the Beatles work and everything, you know, and all that. But then I also think about the people who have impacted me along the way and who have helped me really explore and build my own music and how that happened. You know, I have a really close friend, MC Lars, who's an amazing person, and I met him outside of a show where he was part of a show of a band that was like an old ska punk band, and he's a rapper, but we started having a conversation, and he was like, write what you know, and that was early. And then there's another friend, Sam Baker, who's an amazing disabled musician also. And I happened to be able to sit down with him also at one of his shows one day, and I said, you know, I have all these ideas, but I'm having trouble bringing them into life. You know, how do I do that as a disabled musician? And he said something really simple. I use Logic now as my DAW to be able to write and record, and I use different programs, but also live instruments and things too. But he said, I just use GarageBand, you know, which is like the free version of the recording software from Apple. And so we had a conversation about that, and that was a huge influence on me. And Galen Lee, who I already mentioned, again, a huge influence on me. Mary Gaucher, another queer artist who's not disabled that I know of, but is an adoptee, and that's part of my story too. And and so like her work and being able to encounter her, and then just so many other people who I've worked with along the way. But again, and Lachi comes up right for a lot of us in Ramped, like it's Galen and Lachi and you know, but so many others like you, the work you're doing is an inspiration to me. It really is. It's amazing,
Thank
you
you.
know, and like I love it. And Precious Perez, and you know, just there's and Namel, you know, Tap Waters, you know, there's like so many people. Like I could just go on, James Ian, like I could just name like everybody in Ramped, I think. Like just again being able to be around and share and see those cool things. But and sometimes you get to have these conversations and say, how can we work together, or how can we share, or what can we do, and or what are you doing? And then it gives an idea, it sparks an idea. I've seen you use different things and say, you know, I don't have that, right, but I do have this, and so how can I make this work to be able to do some of those things, you know, and and all that. It's really cool. So
Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I learned a lot of different things so that I knew you in some aspects, but there are some aspects that really it's like always a pleasure to talk about when we're good together. So yeah, thank you so much.
Diane, so good to be with you. Thank you.
Well, have a great day and talk soon.